Say what you will about Xbox and PlayStation, console wars this, Xbox that, pony that. You know what? Your boy has always been and always will be Nintendo first and foremost. Okay, well, actually, your boy will always be Sega first and foremost, but they haven't been in the console game for quite a while. So after that, your boy will always be Nintendo first. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and let's get into the fact that the Switch seemingly has a successor. That's right, a sequel, a Switch 2, if you will, and it is already in the hands of developers and has a tentative release date. Let's get into this article about a Switch 2. Nintendo Switch's successor is already in third-party devs' hands, report claims. Sources shared some basic details about the new device too. That's right, and this is not some sort of hoax, this is not some sort of leak or anything. This is being verified across several journalistic outlets. I know that Cult Classic Cage did release a video on this as well. I don't know if she covered this same article or if she went with, The Gamer or somebody else, but at the end of the day, yes, this seems to be completely verified, albeit very slim pickings when it comes to information. And when it says Nintendo Switch successor is already in third-party devs' hands, for me, that immediately means Capcom. I guarantee you, one of the priority third-party companies that got this sent to them was Capcom. Capcom and Nintendo have a very tight and close working relationship. Now, I'm sure there are others out there as well. I don't know if there's going to be any indie developers, maybe Square Enix or Sega, of course. I'm sure there's some other big names, maybe even Konami, that are going to have this new hardware as well, but I can guarantee you we're seeing first-party development. In fact, first-party development's been probably going on for the last year and a half behind very closed secretive doors because we know how Nintendo is with its IPs and its development cycles. So let's read through here and see what it has to say. Development hardware for Nintendo's next console is already in some third-party developers' hands in preparation for a launch in the second half of 2024. That's right, really? A year from now? Like, the second half of 2024? That sounds far away when you think about it, but no. That's a year away. We're already in the second half of 2023. So, yeah, 1 year from now, by this time next year, summer release, maybe so much so it's Christmas, so, a year and a half away, we could very much be playing a Switch 2. I guarantee you it's probably going to be some sort of holiday release because they want kids and families to buy it. There's going to be a Christmas present, maybe some Black Friday sales that come with a game or two. I'm sure they're also working behind the scenes on some new up-and-coming Nintendo games that we will probably see announced sometime in the near future. In fact, some of the ones that were announced for the Switch may also have upgraded versions being worked on behind the scenes that will also launch for this new console, kind of like how Breath of the Wild launched for both the Wii U and the Switch. I'm sure we're going to see something like that, but at the end of the day, the second half of 2024, that is not far. We don't have a long time to wait. I know a lot of people are thinking, yeah, it's about time. Switch has been around for a while, but to be fair, the Switch is still a completely playable piece of hardware. I mean, yes, is it technically outdated? I mean, yeah, if you want to get technical, but so are half the cell phones everyone's using to watch this video. Those are outdated as well because technology changes every 6 months. The Switch is still perfectly playable, but a new console probably wouldn't be a bad thing either, considering I think not Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom was a bit pushing it when it came to the Switch's capabilities. So it'll be nice to see what they can do next, what they can bring to the table. And this article does go on to talk about that. Sources that spoke to Eurogamer corroborated the late 2024 release window. In the K-Asia report previously claimed earlier this year that Nintendo planned to launch its next console sometime after spring of 2024. So after spring of 2024, again, could actually lead to a summer development cycle, a summer purchase date. I could be wrong. I don't think that consoles landing in the summer is super common. I'd have to look into that, but in my memory, consoles have always sort of released around like a November time frame. If I remember right, that's when the PS3, Xbox, and Switch all released was around the November time frame or maybe October, somewhere around there. It just makes sense to me they would release it closer to Christmas for very obvious marketing reasons. But then again, I could be wrong. I don't remember when the Switch came out. The Switch had already been out for about a year and a half to 2 years by the time I finally purchased one. Probably same for the PlayStation 4. It had been out for about a year or so. I've never been one to immediately jump to and buy consoles when they first come out, but I've been so happy with the Switch. The Switch has probably been the single best gaming purchase I've made since, honestly, maybe the PlayStation 2/GameCube era, that I would actually buy a sequel right out the gate. Sign up for that, pre-order it, get it right away. Citing multiple people with knowledge of Nintendo's next-gen console plans, Video Game Chronicle also claims to clarify a few details about Nintendo Switch's successor. Like the Switch, it will also be usable in portable mode. However, two of the Video Game Chronicle sources suggest that Nintendo will go with an LCD screen to keep costs down, which would make it a downgrade from the latest Switch model in one key area. And yes, technically an LCD screen is lesser than an OLED, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't get the hype around OLED. I know they technically look better, but I've played both the Switch and an OLED. The difference is just so negligible in a handheld mode that it truly doesn't matter. Plus, I'm pretty sure the LCD version lasts longer battery-wise. So if they're going to go LCD to keep costs down because everything else is getting upgraded, I think that's fine. I think that's something that we should all be A-okay with. If the one thing that's going to be like, I'm not going to buy the Switch 2 because it's not OLED by default, you probably weren't interested to begin with, and Mario probably ain't your thing. The drive to keep costs down is reportedly due to the need to include additional storage in the device, as upgrades to other internal hardware like the CPU, GPU, or memory will raise the bar in terms of production values, leading to larger game sizes. It is not unusual for single PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X/S games to have install sizes larger than the storage any Switch currently ships with, though the Switch storage can be expanded with micro SD cards. Yeah, I do hope they make that a bit more user-friendly, though, because swapping out micro SD cards in a Switch is an awful process. That sometimes stuff needs to be formatted. It's also just not very easy to get to, so I hope that the way it's physically designed makes it easier, because I'm sure they will have micro SD cards for this upcoming Switch successor as well. But yeah, again, I ran out of memory on my Switch pretty quick, but also the games are not near as large as, like they say here, PlayStation 5 or Xbox games. I also don't need them to be. I mean, again, it's more or less a handheld console that you can also play docked on a big screen. But even if it wasn't a handheld console, even if it was docked on a screen, Nintendo has proven time and time again they care about the gameplay experience and resonating with actual gamers of all ages than just, oh, who has the best hardware. That's what Sony and Microsoft have been effectively since the PS3 era, in my opinion, / Xbox 360 is, oh, who's got the best hardware? Who can one-up the other person? Whereas Nintendo has always just done their own thing. And I think it works well. The Wii is the second best-selling console of all time after the PlayStation 2. Nintendo has always dominated the handheld market. I mean, do you guys even remember what a Neo Geo is? The PSP? Oh yeah, everyone's clamoring to find themselves a used PSP. Yeah, Nintendo has always dominated handheld, and now they just merged the two together with the Switch. It makes sense for them to continue that trend. The sources also claim that Nintendo's next console will have a cartridge slot accommodating physical release of games. That wasn't a given, considering the hard shift toward digital purchases across most gaming platforms over the past few years. And my god, I hope that something stops. I mean, you know what? I don't play Xbox or PlayStation anyway. Sure, go for it. Make your stuff digital. I think that's a mistake. Physical copy will always be supreme. But if you want to go all digital, go for it. But Nintendo knows what's up. Nintendo knows that they need to accommodate physical release, because things can happen. You can lose data. You can lose your entire console. Oh, well, your games are gone. Like, buying physical, there's also the collector's aspect. You know, it's nice to have all your games physically sitting on a shelf for you to look at, for you to peruse through and decide, I want to play Sonic Frontiers today, or I want to play Breath of the Wild today. And there's no greater feeling than cracking open a case, popping out a cartridge, and sliding it in your Switch, all gentle-like, and then popping on your favorite game and actually playing through it. I get the convenience of download only, and of course there are digital-only games on the Switch, but at the end of the day, your boy prefers physical, and they should always give us options. If you want to go digital, go for it, but the option for physical should always still be there. And frankly, if they're talking about how it's going to accommodate physical games, then maybe, just maybe, since there's still going to be cartridges, that means backwards compatibility, which I know sounds far-fetched because backwards compatibility has not really been a thing that many have cared about as of late, but this article does mention it, and I wouldn't be surprised if they do. The report says that it remains unclear whether backward compatibility with Switch games is part of the plan, but Nintendo leadership hinted during an earnings call earlier this year that it's looking at ways to retain the Switch user base as it moves into the next generation, which some analysts and outlets read to be a hint that Switch's successor may be backward compatible. And I mean, why not? If it's going to continue to use consoles, I mean, all those, well, not all, but several of their other systems have done it. Remember the DS? You could put Game Boy Advance games in there. Remember the Game Boy Advance? You could play Game Boy Color games in there. Backwards compatibility with their handhelds, kind of a long-standing tradition that got thrown out the way during the 3DS era, or really maybe it was the DS Lite. Either way, yeah, I think that this would work perfectly. If you're going to upgrade the CPU, if you're going to upgrade the GPU, that means that it would easily be able to play Switch games. So why not just have a secondary port, or even a port that still fits Switch games, aside, that is intertwined with the main port, that allows you to actually continue to play Switch games, just for the convenience of it. So I think that would be a massive win. Backwards compatibility in gaming is something that I've desperately missed. The PS3 was backwards compatible with the PS1, which not the PS2, which well, some models. The point is, without getting into the weeds of it, we haven't seen backwards compatibility in any meaningful way since the PS3/Xbox 360 era. Yeah, you can stream older games or download older games that you have to purchase yourself or pay some sort of monthly fee for on things like the Xbox Series S, the PS4, the PS5, but that's not the same as just being able to pop in the old disc of a game you already own and play it again for the convenience of it. Now, if you want to play Silent Hill 4, sorry, you gotta hook your PS2 back up, or maybe you have one of those PS3 models that can play PS2 games in working order, though I doubt it. Those things died pretty easy. The Switch first launched over 6 years ago in March 2017, but it far surpassed its predecessor, the Wii U, in sales and continues to deliver strong software sales for Nintendo. Hardware sales have slowed, however, with Sony PlayStation 5 outpacing the Switch recently. Yeah, it took Sony 6 years to catch up, but they finally did it. Launching in the middle of Sony and Microsoft console cycle would be consistent with Nintendo's past strategy, which is also true, although it's only been the last two consoles, the Switch and the Wii U. The Wii launched with the rest of the others. It launched right alongside the PS3, I believe that the very next day, and a little bit later than the Xbox 360, which beat them all to the punch. So yeah, I think it's actually good for Nintendo to release in the middle of their cycles, because let's be real, they don't have a lot of crossover. Most people that are diehard Nintendo fanboys like myself look at the bickering between the Xbox and the ponies and just think, you guys are morons. Like, at the end of the day, we crave Nintendo. Not just gaming in general. Nintendo fans crave a certain type of brand, a certain type of experience that only Nintendo can bring to the table, that we're not going to get from Sony or PlayStation. So it's not like it's any real competition. There's a reason people leave Nintendo from the console wars. And it's because if they include Nintendo in the console wars, well, look at the Wii U, or sorry, not the Wii U, look at the Wii and look at the Switch. Nintendo kind of dominates, despite the fact that they don't have a bunch of M-rated games with blood and gore and first-person shooting. They still dominate with things like Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. We can surely expect the Switch's successor to offer less processing power and lower fidelity than the PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series XS, given that Nintendo plans to keep the price down so a wide range of families can afford to buy the console. Video games done right. I don't care how powerful the hardware is. Is it fun to play? Are the games good? Is it well made? And is there love behind it? That's what Nintendo does right. And I think them keeping families as the priority here, it goes to show that Nintendo has not changed since the 80s. And given the constraints of portable device, targeting a lower graphics spec also reduces the cost in both dollars and manpower of developing new games for the Switch relative to enormous teams that make showstoppers for the more powerful consoles, potentially improving Nintendo's first-party software margins and allowing its developers to continue making games by similar processes to those they've used before. And that's also very good for the third-party developers that they mentioned have these in hand already. If these third-party developers are also already familiar with putting games out for Switch, which are very different than things for like the PS5 or the Xbox, then yeah, I would think that the next step up, the Switch's successor, should remain similar enough so that it's not an entirely new experience, something incredibly difficult to work with for the third-party developers. I mean, if I remember correctly, the Wii and the Wii U were both nightmares to develop for, which is why they had rather lackluster third-party libraries. The Switch, I hear, has been a bit better, at least a bit better in the modern years, which is why we have a lot of third-party support in the Switch. And I think that could be even better going forward. Like I said, there's a few third-party developers that Nintendo has always been tight with, namely Sega and Capcom, and Square Enix as well. So I'm sure all three of those companies have this successor in hand already and are already looking to develop for it, and they're seeing that this is basically like the Switch, only better. I don't think we're going to see massive upgrades. I think we're going to see just the next evolution of the Switch. People were talking about how I keep saying Breath of the Wild, how Tears of the Kingdom wasn't new enough. It didn't feel like a new shiny experience. It just felt like more Breath of the Wild when it comes to the actual mechanics, or sorry, not mechanics, when it came to the graphics, when it came to the frame rate, when it came to the data, things like that. So I think that if we were to take what people wanted Tears of the Kingdom to be and extrapolate that towards imagine Tears of the Kingdom on the next gen, that's what we're going to get. We're literally just going to get the next evolution of what a Switch could handle, which, hey, does that mean better graphics but still cell shading? Does it mean better than the Switch but still, about like a little above PS4 level? I'm A-okay with all of that because I trust Nintendo. There have been no reputable leaks or reports to date about the relative processing power of the Switch's successor. However, a widespread rumor that circulated a couple years ago about a 4K targeting higher-end Switch Pro seemingly turned out to be a misrepresentation of Nintendo's plans for either journalists or their sources, as the product that ultimately launched was simply the Switch OLED, which paired the Switch's existing internals with a larger, higher-end display. So yeah, I want to know what you guys think about this. I mean, obviously this isn't the sort of like hard-hitting, controversial stuff I normally cover in nerd culture, but I say all the time, I want to cover positivity as well. And I think the idea that in a year, maybe less, maybe a little more, we could have a sequel to the Switch, arguably the greatest console in modern gaming, everything I consider modern gaming, the PS3 era and onward. Yeah, I think that's pretty great news that is worth celebrating. I think that we should all thank Nintendo. They gave us the Mario movie, they gave us Tears of the Kingdom, now they're giving us a sequel, they're giving us a Mario RPG remake, which no one saw coming, if we're being completely honest here. Everything seems to be falling in line for Nintendo in a way that only can make us happy. I mean, we might have a Zelda film coming in the future. Who knows? The sky is literally the limit. While people are over there throwing fits about Jedi Survivor being, not playable on release, Nintendo fans been eating good. Ain't nobody had a single problem with Tears of the Kingdom when it came out, and it's because Nintendo knows what they're doing. Unless it comes to Pokemon. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on Twitter where you can find me at Bolt of the Word. And please just subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about Nintendo or video games, but also about anime, movies, Magic the Gathering, you name it. It's all here in the Nerdosphere. And this has been Words of Paradise.